Missionaries for God. The advancement of the Church in spiritual things is not in proportion to the light which has shone upon their pathway. God has committed to each talents to be improved by putting them out to the exchangers, that when the Master comes, he may receive his own with usury. There is more talent in the Church and more material to make good workmen than can be employed to advantage in that locality. The entire Church are not growing in spirituality. They are not favorably situated to develop strength by calling into exercise the talents that God has given them. There is not room for all to work. One gets in the way of another. There is a lack of spiritual strength. If the talent and influence of several of its members should be exercised in other churches, where they would be drawn out to help or help is really needed, they would be obtaining an experience of the highest value in spiritual things, and by thus bearing responsibilities and burdens in the work of God would be a blessing to others. While engaged in helping others, they would be following the example of Christ. He came not to be ministered unto, but to minister to others. He pleased not himself. He made himself of no reputation, but took upon himself the form of a servant, and spent his life in doing good. He could have spent his days on earth in ease and plenty, and have appropriated to himself the enjoyments of this life. But he lived not to enjoy. He lived to do good and to save others from suffering, and his example is for us to follow. God calls for missionaries. There are men of ability in the Church who will grow in capacity and power as they exercise their talents in the work and cause of God. If these brethren will educate themselves to make the cause of God their first interest, and will sacrifice their pleasure and inclination for the truth's sake, the blessing of God will rest upon them. These brethren who love the truth, and who have been for years rejoicing because of increasing light upon the Scriptures, should let their light shine forth to those who are in darkness. God will be to them wisdom and power, and will glorify himself in working with and by those who wholly follow him. If any man serve me, him will my Father honor. The wisdom and power of God will be given to the willing and faithful. The brethren have been willing to give off their means for the various enterprises, but they have withheld themselves. They have not said, "Here am I, Lord, send me." It is not the strength of human instruments, but the power and wisdom of Him who employs them and works with them that makes man successful in doing the work that is necessary to be done. By offering our goods to the possessor of heaven and earth, while we withhold ourselves, we cannot meet his approbation nor secure his blessing. There must be in the hearts of the brethren and sisters a principle to lay all, even themselves, upon the altar of God. We wish that all the Lord's servants were laborers. There is work for everyone in the vineyard of the Lord. None should be idle. Angels of God are all astir, ascending to heaven and descending to earth, again with messages of mercy and warning. These heavenly messengers are moving upon minds and hearts. There are men and women everywhere whose hearts are susceptible of being inspired with the truth. If those who have a knowledge of the truth would now work in unison with the Spirit of God, we would see a great work accomplished. New fields are open in which all can test their calling by experimental effort in bringing souls out from darkness and error and establishing them upon the platform of eternal truth. The work of feeding a people in these last days for the coming of Christ is a most sacred, solemn work and calls for devoted, unselfish laborers, those who have humility, faith, energy, perseverance, and decision will find plenty to do in their Master's vineyard. There are responsible duties to be performed which require earnestness and the exertion of all their energies. It is willing service that God accepts. If the truth we profess is of such infinite importance as to decide the destiny of souls, how careful should we be in its presentation?